Hey YouTube, what's good? It's Steven, and welcome back. Alright, so a YouTube user named Sonia Waltermeyer Bates Garcia asked me the following question. Alright, she asked me, what do you think of mixed people who keep mixing? And I kind of think this is a bit of an odd question. You know, usually I consider mixed people one or the other. I really, to an extent, while there is a racial category for mixed, to an extent, I feel like, does it really exist in the mind of the average person, at least in America? Because in America, oftentimes you're one or the other, right? You're one thing or another thing. People who are mixed with, like, say, Asian and white, oftentimes they tend to just be one or the other. People who are mixed with black and white oftentimes tend to be just black. People who are mixed with, Latino, I guess maybe perhaps mestizo and white tend to be either one or the other, um, et cetera, right? Hmm. I don't really see mixed people continuing to mix with other mixed people. I often see them mixing with monoracial people, right? Um, so, me personally, I think it's awesome that a mixed person would want to mix with another mixed person. I think that to an extent that probably should be promoted for mixed people. But oftentimes that's not promoted for mixed people. It's either one or the other. It's like, choose a side. And I think for continuing to mix, that would be like them continuing to be on the fence, like to be in the middle and not choose a side. And I think that's not promoted because we don't want people to be on the fence. We want people to choose one side or the other, you know. And historically speaking, the mixed people in the United States, which were considered at that time mulatto, like those people did mix amongst themselves because they had their own racial category, right? However, um, at one point or another during the early 20th century, the one drop rule came into law, you know, as far as being put on the books. And many states adopted it. So it was adopted on state level by at least half the states, I believe. So then, right, the mulatto category went away, right? And by the way, I'm going to be talking about this from more of like a black and white perspective because that's what I'm more familiar with. And as well relating it back to the black community more so, just an FYI. But that category was eliminated. Thus, there were no social barriers between mixed people and black people. They were considered one and the same. Thus the name colored people, right? So I think once that happened, then for mixed people to continue mixing with other mixed people, I think that would be considered a little strange. And I think black people, monoracial black people probably felt some type of a way about that. And I think that's why in the community it's not promoted, right? Black, they probably felt slighted, felt like they were being, pretentious or bougie, uppity, right? Because that is a stereotype amongst when it comes to lighter skinned black people and mixed people being stereotyped as, kind of thinking that you're better than somebody, being stereotyped as pretentious, bougie, uppity, sedity, right? You know, and since you're in the same community with, you know, these people, you kind of do want their approval, right? And monoracial black people are the majority, while you know, mulatto people at that time were considered like a minority within a minority, like a super minority. It's kind of like you're black, but you're a different type of black, right? So it's like a super minority. So since this is the group that mulatto people have been assigned now, it's like, well, we have to have, we want the approval of this group. So, we kind of have to do, the mulatto people kind of have to do what they have to do in order to, you know, get into the group and become a part of the group. Mhm. And I think this sort of traces back to like mixed people and light skinned people's like dating preferences a lot of the times, especially when it comes to women who are mixed or light skinned. And I'm throwing in light skinned people with this because I think it does apply. Even though light skinned people are like quote unquote a different type of mix, but still, in this situation, I think it is applicable. Um, but when it comes to like mixed and light skinned folks, especially being raised around like a black environment, or being raised in a black environment, I think when it comes to dating preferences, a lot of times they tend to date people who the environment that they are a part of approves of, right? So this, mulatto or light skinned person dating a white person, the community is not going to approve of that, right? So they're not going to date that type of person, or they'll be less likely to date that type of a person because they want to be a part of the community, right? They want to be seen as, oh, I'm not that type of a light skinned person. And I think this plays out even till today. Like, light skinned people kind of like using dark skinned people as sort of like a way to declare blackness, a way to um, well, of course, definitely perpetuate blackness within like their bloodline, and also like as a political statement, like, oh, I'm with like a monoracial black person, so it's like, look how down I am with the community, right? Look how down I am. Look, you know, and Dr. Yaba Blay had mentioned this a while ago in her documentary Black and American. I think it's what she said um, is very valid and insightful. She said that colorism leaves, lighter skinned black people with identity issues, while it leaves darker skinned people with self esteem issues. And I think that is very true. I think light the light skinned and mixed people kind of use black people and also white people too, to sort of declare themselves as one or the other, or like declaring their allegiance in a way, right? So I think when it comes to like mixed people mixing or with other mixed people, that ain't promoted because we want you to be one or the other. And oftentimes, if a mixed person is with another mixed person, then it's still kind of like ambiguous. It's still like, to an extent, it's like ambiguous because it's like we still don't really know you. Like, we don't know where you lean, right? What side you on. He's still kind of like in the middle. I mean, of course, there are like light skinned folk and whatnot who probably are black and just continue to be black, right? Like, say Steph Curry and Alicia, I think Aisha Curry or Alicia Curry. Yeah. I think it's Aisha Curry. But yeah, Steph Curry and his wife, right? They're both light skinned black people. They're not, mixed like first generational, right? But as far as like them having, you know, non-black DNA, of course, right? I'm sure if we did a DNA test on them, they would come back with, some amount of non-black DNA. But, for the racial category, they claim black, right? So look at them, right? Look at them. You don't really see that a lot of the time, especially in the media. You really don't see that. You don't really see two light skinned or two mixed folks getting together like that, right? I mean, look at Halle Berry, right? She chose white folk, or the white side, right? And I think some black men feel some type of a way about that, honestly. You know, I think black men, as a group or a collective, probably have felt slighted. Although Halle Berry did marry a black man, Eric Benet, I think that's his name. Also a mixed man, David Justice. I think she married those two guys, at least Eric Benet. Um, but she had her child with the white dude, the white man, right? Some model. And then she went on with another white man, like a boxer or something. And she was like a baby daddy with one, and then she was like married and had another kid with another one, you know. So I think for Halle Berry, she sort of tried like, all her options, and I guess she went with the white option, right? Not quite sure why. Um, no. And also, you have to think about like, as far as like the black community, a gathering of light-skinned people without dark-skinned people is seen as sort of like, I don't want to say like a threat. I think that might be a bit extreme, but it's viewed as suspicious, honestly. Think about it. Like when TV shows have like an all light-skinned black cast, it's seen as suspicious. People look at it a certain way, like, oh, there's like no dark-skinned people here. Even though we can have like a show with only dark-skinned people and then not be viewed as suspicious by like light-skinned people, right? Where do you think that suspicion comes from? Where do you think that that stems from, right? Because historically, light-skinned people were sort of exclusive, right, amongst themselves, like, paper bag tests, you know what I'm saying? These organizations and communities that you can't get into unless you look a certain way, unless you're light enough to get in, right? And I think that historically speaking, I think that's where the suspicion of light-skinned people may come from. And also, I think just in general, black people have been so used that it's like, what do you want from us? Like, are you really down for us, right? And I don't knock black people, like, I guess monoracial, darker skinned black people for thinking that way. I think that they have a right to know because black people have been so like used and abused and misled and played so many times. Like Barack Obama just recently did that with us. So yes, I don't knock black people for that, you know. But nevertheless, it's still a thing as far as like light skinned people being viewed as suspicious. Mixed people too. But as far as like mixed people mixing amongst themselves, me personally, I don't have an issue with it. I just don't think I really see it that much. And I suppose that's like a way of declaring mixedness. Like, hey, I'm mixed and that's what I am. I personally think that it's sort of like doesn't really exist in America. I think at one point it did, but then it was taken away. And then it came back like decades later. And I don't know. I think that, in my personal opinion, I think that you're often one thing or the other in the United States. Even when you are, asked your race, and I will, like if someone asked me my, genetic, racial, breakdown or rundown, I can be like, oh, I'm black, white, Native American, Asian, Middle Eastern, right? And I can be correct in all those things, right? But people are going to be like, well, what are you, right? What do you consider yourself, right? And it's like, oh, well, then at that point, I guess they're asking you to choose a side, right? And some people who are mixed don't want to choose a side, of course, you know. Um, I'm kind of am all over the place with this, but to sum it up and bring this video to a close, like my personal opinion, I think that's great. And I think it's great that mixed people want to mix amongst themselves. I just don't think that it's promoted, and I think that the category of mixed is sort of like, mm, I don't really know if it's really a valid category, even though it's on the books. Um, but I do think it's great that mixed people um, would mix amongst themselves, because you really don't see that, right? It's like choose one side or the other. But the thing is, like, are there really even that many mixed people to go around too? Like a lot of times mixed people are like the only people who are mixed within their like social setting. So oftentimes they just are, it's just not an option a lot of the times, you know. Um, and again, it's so that's probably another reason why you tend not to see it, because you tend not to have like a lot of mixed people in the setting. Also, it's not being promoted. Also, it's perhaps seen as suspicious. Um, the community sort of not frowns upon it, but kind of again views it as a bit suspicious or a bit odd, or yeah. So, to YouTube users, Sunny Sonia, right? Um, I hope I hope that this video was able to answer your question. Um, I know that it was like all over the place with this video, but I hope you were able to get something out of this video. If not, my bad. But thanks a lot for watching, and feel free to leave, your comments, your opinions, your criticisms, what have you, in the comment section. Thanks a lot for watching. Adios and goodbye for now.